This meeting to order at 6:29 PM on Thursday, September 21st, 2023. Sansi, can you do a roll call, please?
Robin Barker is absent. Cheryl Bigelow.
Here.
Judy Bory is absent. Cheryl Hall.
Here.
Pam Kraus.
Here.
Vivian Reisky is absent. And Vera Walters.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
All right, thank you. I'd like to get a motion to accept the agenda.
I so move we accept the agenda.
Can I hear a second, please?
I second.
Can I get a roll call?
Robin Barker is absent. Cheryl Bigelow.
Here.
Judy Bory is absent. Cheryl Hall.
Yeah, here, or
Pam.
yes. Yes.
Pam Kraus.
Here. Yes.
Vivian Reisky is absent. And Vera Walters.
Here. Yes.
Motion
It's
passes.
supposed to be yes. It's supposed to be yes. That's okay. We're going to take that as read. I'd like to move on to acceptance of the minutes from the August 10th regular meeting. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
I motion to accept the minutes.
Can I hear a second, please?
A second.
Roll call?
Robin Barker is absent. Cheryl Bigelow.
Yes.
Judy Bory is absent. Cheryl Hall.
Yes.
Pam Kraus.
Yes.
Vivian Reisky is absent. Vera Walters.
Yes.
And that motion passes as well.
All right. We have nobody from the public, so let's move on to correspondence and communications. Is there any correspondence and communications at this time?
There is not.
All right, so we'll move right on to the librarian report.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, board members, for being here tonight. And I present you with the librarian's report for this meeting of September 21st, 2023. Here we are looking at the monthly report for July as well as August. If you looked at these prior to the meeting, you may have noticed that the new patrons for the youth category in August was quite high at 635. And I just wanted to let you know that was because of the student cards from the Apache Junction Unified School District being put back into the system. It was a little bit of an issue, not an issue, but normally we would update the accounts, but we had to instead replace the accounts. So that is the number that is being accounted for there. I'm also pleased to announce that in inspecting the August report compared to last August, we were higher in every category, including books, which back in 2022 for August was 13,900. E-content was 13,847, and patron visits was just over 16,000. So we have surpassed those numbers from last year. And I did also want to make you aware that August was the month when we had the North Wing closed most of the month due to the new shelving project. So I was really pleased to see that our stats were as high as they were. And here are some photos of the new North Wing shelving. As you can see, like we have told you before, that they are on casters, so the shelving is mobile. We did a This Day in AJ video a couple weeks ago that was posted into the Apache Junction weekly email newsletter. So it showed some of the different angles and shots and information about the new shelving. The end panels were a little late in arriving, and they just got installed this past Monday. We are still waiting on some bookends and on some display ends for the end panels, and they should be hopefully decided upon and arriving in the next couple of months. But all in all, everything looks great. We're really happy with it. We're still shifting the collections a little bit to make sure everything looks pristine. This two-shelf unit here in the front is empty at the moment. We are going to be using that for new nonfiction display books. So we're going to be transitioning some current furniture with this over the weekend. So next week we should have that filled and ready for people to peruse. We are working too on getting some sort of wireless charging stations in this room, because we do have a couple tables scattered throughout the back, and they are not near any electrical outlets. And we know that people like to park at a table for a while and either do some work or some studying, and so we definitely need to have something so they can plug in their laptops and charge their phones. J.A. Jantz delighted us again this past week with 2 author visits and signings. We had 90 literary enthusiasts join us this time around. It wasn't quite as big as it was last year, but it's also because of the time of the year. So we had a very big first session and a smaller second session, and Half Price Books was there to sell the books, and she was in the mystery room to sign them, as you can see her on the right with our Bibliobites girls, Leah and Megan. I'm really pleased with our youth department this fall. They are starting a couple different new programs that are focusing on our school-age kids after school. And as you can see in this photo, we have quite a good turnout, and this was just the second week of the program. This one's called Lab Rats, and it is for ages 9 to 14, and they get to experience hands-on STEM-related activities. The first session, they were shown videos of NASA landing rovers on Mars and dogs parachuting with their masters. And then they were challenged to make a parachute for their NASA astronaut, which was a Lego figurine. They had to make a parachute for their Lego figurine and drop them off the top of the playground slide. And we're happy to announce that nobody was harmed in this program, and the kids really enjoyed it. And they got to test their parachutes and then make changes and test them again to make them glide even better. So this is a program that is going on throughout the month of September. And Crafty Kids is another program that's after school, and this one is more of a creative program, and it introduces kids to a lot of the mediums that artists use. So the kids experimented with drawing and sketching, and then painting on canvases was last week's, and there's some photos of their creations. Today, I saw them doing air clay projects, and kids were walking out of the room, walk into the bathrooms with their hands just white with clay, and they just looked very happy. Next week is fabric art, and this was a registration program so that we can have enough materials for all the kids to participate. So I'm sure we'll be doing this again in the future. It's been a great success. I was pleasantly surprised earlier this week to see a bunch of kids come into the library, teens, and I wasn't quite aware what was going on, but it was the Avalon School's 6th graders. They had a field trip to the library. They got to get student library cards, toured the building, and toured the mobile library. And then they participated in library detective activities that taught them how to find books in the library, and they each got to check out a book. So Avalon, in case you weren't aware, does not have its own library, so the 6th grade teachers have prioritized our library services for their students. The mobile library is planning to visit Avalon in November, and the 6th grade classes will return to the library building in December for more activities and book checkout. And since Avalon is a charter school and not part of Apache Junction Unified School District, these students don't have that student automatic student library card. So we were really glad to be able to accommodate them and get them signed up. And that concludes my librarian's report.
I'd like to ask a question about the uptick. Are we back to pre-pandemic levels of visitors?
I'd still say we're a little bit under that. I recall it being, well, this time of year, this time of the year we might be. I'd have to go back and look for sure and go back a couple years. But when, we'll see this winter how we do when the winter visitors are back, because normally we're in the 20,000s during those months. So I could definitely report back on that. I would say we're almost there, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
I have a question.
Sure.
Did you know Avalon was coming?
I didn't personally, but Stephanie from the youth department and Megan from the mobile library. They did know. So it was planned. I was just in my office, and I heard a bunch of students, and I could tell they weren't the preschoolers, and I looked out my door, and I was like, oh, cool, this is great. So I was a junior high librarian for 15 years, so, you know, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are like my favorite age group, so yeah, it was a good time. They had a really good group, and the principal was there. He brought them and some other teachers, so it was a good time.
Good. All right, thank you very much, Pam, for the report. Old business. We, 23-510, have a discussion and possible vote on a change to policy language for a deletion of all expired Apache Junction Public Library accounts 7 years or older with fees of $49.99 or less.
Yes, thank you. In our last meeting, we discussed the possibility of a one-time courtesy deletion of all expired public library accounts 5 years or older with fees of $49.99 or less. And after further discussion, it was decided that we would bring it to this meeting to look at the possibility of adding it into our policies. So after looking at our policies and our procedures that we currently have, I became aware that this proposed language would actually fit better into our procedures. Did they get a copy of the table of contents for?
No, but it's on, if you go to that one right there, and then go,
Does it go all the way
Scroll
to?
up.
Oh, okay, it does go.
There you go.
Thank you, sorry. Okay, so this is the table of contents for the library procedures. And because it speaks in the procedures about loan periods, charges, and library cards, I felt that it fit better into our procedures. So if you do decide tonight to vote on this, I would just change the word policy to procedure in your language. In front of you, you can see the proposed procedure, which is on page 5. And it's called Uncollectible Patron Accounts. It's a couple pages long, and we were not able to get this to you before the meeting tonight. So is it weird to let them have a couple minutes to read it? Okay. So I don't want to read it to you, because I don't want to hear my voice for that long. So I'm going to let you have a couple minutes to read it, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about it.
I had a question. The procedure, is this a procedure or this is a procedure?
It's a procedure, and I see now that I forgot to change the word policy conditions here to procedure conditions, so that can definitely be changed. But was that your question, or was it something else?
No, it's actually the frequency that you decide to go back and, is this like something you would do once a year? You would go back and say, okay, has hit that 7-year window?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be the plan. And I chose 7 years because in the past, we talked about 5, we talked about 10. I thought 7 was a good compromise. I did want to show you guys a matrix here of other nearby libraries and what they do with fees, starting with some of the Pinal County libraries. Casa Grande doesn't waive fees ever. Florence, they waive fees and delete accounts after 3 years. Maricopa City Library does not waive fees. Maricopa County, they did a bulk waive in June of 2021. That was by board approval. So they took accounts all the way back to whenever their account started, and they waived approximately $1.3 million in fees from 110,000 accounts. Mesa is 5 years. Phoenix, they don't do a periodic bulk waive, but they do work with people on a case-by-case basis. And then Tempe is 4 years, and Tucson, Pima County is 3 years. So it's not unusual. In ours, if we go ahead with this, just to give you an idea, since this has not been done with our library in the past, the total amount of accounts that would be waived and deleted is 2,155 patron accounts, and that would waive fees of approximately $49,607.54. And so if this is approved, this would happen on a yearly basis. And of course, next year would be a lot less. Each consecutive year would be less because we're taking everything 7 years. And I took October 1st as the day. 7 years from October 1st, 2023 forward is going to go until when our patron account started, but each year we would just do ones that reached to 7 years. So it would be a substantially less amount.
I got a question for you, Pam.
Sure.
So if we're deleting the accounts, those accounts are completely wiped out of the system, or are they still showing there?
They're completely wiped out.
Okay. So the same person can constantly, every 7 years, get their account wiped out and then reapply for a new card with you guys, pretty much?
They could.
Okay.
They could.
What's the advantage to wiping out accounts every 7 years?
Well, as we discussed a couple meetings ago, it cleans up our system. It's harder to work with a bigger database with so many expired files. And then when people come back in, occasionally an account will be made for somebody that already had an account that had fees on it. It doesn't happen often because our staff is trained to search for those beforehand. But it just makes things easier to deal with in terms of collection development, because those items still show up in these people's accounts. They don't show in the catalog. They're deleted. They're in a deleted status. But it's hard when you're working with accounts and with the collection, and there's so many old things in there that don't really pertain anymore when you're running reports. And it just keeps things fresher too. I can't tell you exactly how many of these people that would be part of this 2,155 people, how many are deceased, how many had their fees waived through bankruptcy. We normally get notified, but I'm sure there's some that fell through the cracks. How many have moved out of the area? After a while, it's just a matter of keeping things to a point where we can better work with them and hopefully reintroduce some people back to the library and not have to penalize them for a less than $50 fee, which could be one book, depending on what the book was. It could be several books. If they were, from 15, 20 years ago, they could be $3.99 paperbacks, and they lost 10 of them. So it's just giving people an opportunity to come back to the library, to experience what we have going on there now, the new things that we have, to be part of the community again.
You say you're not going to advertise this.
Hello?
Yeah, we just did.
Well, because we do have to go through this approval process if we're going to do this, either as a one-time deal, which at the last meeting wasn't as popular as bringing it to something that we never have to talk about again. And I think 7 years is a lot higher number of years than a lot of other cities are doing. Mesa is, 10 times bigger than us, and they're doing it, every 3 years, and they probably don't want me advertising that to the world either. But it's, it's something that to keep our systems in check and to keep our collections in check. It's just what has become more of the norm.
I would also add that we're growing the city by almost a factor of basically 100% with the new homes being built. And with a potential new library in the future, that's that many more records that we're going to need that these guys are going to need to maintain. I agree with Pam that keeping your data clean is just, it's good practice from a business perspective, and it reduces the mind share that has to be spent on maintaining information that really is no longer has any relevance, or it's very unlikely to have any relevance given the length of time we're talking here of 7 years. So I think that the 7 years is a good kind of middle road between 5, which I think we were all feeling is a little bit too short, 10, which isn't providing probably enough of a benefit in the number of records that you're able to eliminate and no longer have to pay attention to. So I like the 7 as a compromise, and I really appreciate you putting it in as a regular process, which I know I can't remember who was that was very much in favor of having something in the policy language. I think that was a good add from last time. So are there any other comments or concerns from the board about this proposal?
I would like to go on record as I can understand the logistics of the accounting, and I agree we are growing in a tremendous rate, and if it's going to make it easier to make a more efficient library, then I would vote for it. I do not like the idea of people not owning the responsibility that they have to the community and to the library.
And we do have to remember that if one of these people comes back, perhaps they see this and they remember, well, yeah, I haven't been to the library in a decade, and I had fees. And they come back, if they lose something or damage something again, they're also not going to be able to keep checking out materials. So it's like we give them a pass, let's say, but it's not forever.
Got it.
So are we at a point where we feel like we could vote on this measure?
Sure.
All right. So the vote would be to accept the proposal for the new language in the procedure to have a 7-year, anything that's older than 7 years and less than $49.99 would be eliminated, would be removed from the database. We would not collect those fees. And we would have that language for a regular process to happen every year, to do that same thing at that 7-year mark for any accounts that are that expired long, or expired that long. That's the proposal. Do I have a motion to vote on that proposal?
I motion.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I second.
All right, can we get a roll call?
Yeah, Robin Barker is absent. Cheryl Bigelow.
Yes.
Judy Bory is absent. Cheryl Hall.
Yes.
Pam Kraus.
Yes.
Vivian Reisky is absent. And Vera Walters.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Poor Vera.
Hesitation.
I know,
Yes,
I
with
know.
hesitation.
I know, there is something that pulls
It's
your,
okay. It's okay.
I get where you're going. I agree.
All right, since there's no new business, are there any future agenda items that we would like to add for the next meeting?
I got a quick question. How often do you go through the database, and if they haven't used their cards, you delete them from the system? How often is that done?
that's done every 3 years,
Every 3 years? Okay.
and that's for people that don't have any
Activity on their
any
account?
fees,
Okay.
So in other words,
or any, yeah,
okay, so if they
I got
have
it.
a fee, if they owe some money, they're not deleted at 3 years.
exactly.
If they.
And remember, we don't charge fines,
Right.
so if they've lost or damaged something and it has to be over $5, then they're gonna stay on there.
I'm just trying to make sure that your system is clear, so that's one thing I wasn't
Right.
sure on. Okay.
So are there no requests for future agenda items?
No.
All right, well, then I would like to adjourn this meeting at 6:57 PM